You can get rid of that box.
Okay, we're up to the Mishna on Daf Yudam with Beis.
I guess you didn't.
In the middle of the page. In Maseches,
You didn't do it hard enough.
Mishnah says, any document that is in a non-Jewish system of court, this is not what somebody would think, by the way. Someone who doesn't know Halacha would think there's no such thing. But if you have a document in a non-Jewish court of law, even though the signatures, the people who have signed, the witnesses, are non-Jews, it's still kosher. Except for the document of divorce and freedom. Shimon says even these documents are kosher, even Gittin. We have to understand why. It's only also if it's not done professionally. If a document is not done professionally by a non-Jew, but if it's done professionally, there's the idea they don't want to lose their ne'amanos, their reliability. They have a certain reputation. So in such a case, we believe her. So the Gemara will explain. The Gemara says, "Kopasik v'toni." Seems like we're giving a din that's straightforward. It's not differentiating between a sale or a gift. Makes sense a sale because you're giving the money. The money is the acquisition. The document is just for a raya. It's for a proof. If he hadn't given the money, they wouldn't have ruined their chazaka to cause harm to the reputation to write a star without money. When you're talking about a gift, what's the kinyan? Isn't it with the document? You're doing the kinyan with the document because there's no money being involved. It's a gift. This star is like a piece of earthenware. So how could you use a star from a matana? It's a big question. Shmuel's answer is when it comes to monetary issues, so therefore, even a star mecher, it's able to be a star because it's money. When it comes to money, the other answer is you have to add a chaf in the Mishna, except for cases that are similar to Gittin. So in such a case, if you read it like that, then it would make sense because it would be including the star mecher. I actually forgot when it comes to the Mishnah, when we had the Mishnah, you're not able to say. So the Gemara explained, we're talking about you became a chirish before you had a chance to say. So my father asked, what about someone who's just pashut as an elaim? Why can't you say we're talking about an elaim? So there's a Taisus I remember at Daf Ham and Aleph that he asked this question. We don't mention Elay for somebody who hasn't seen. That he didn't say, not that he cannot say. He didn't say. It's hard to understand exactly this answer. The lingo of the inner Yochel Loimar sounds like we're talking about even if he wanted to, he wouldn't be able to say. He's a chirish. Someone who's an Elaim, however, he's also not able to say. Maybe he's able to write it. Why can't a chirish write it? I'm not sure. I don't really understand that Taisus. Maybe I shouldn't have brought it in. All right. Rabbi Shimon Omer, back in the Gemara on Daf Yudam with Beis, 5 lines at the bottom. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Afeluk Shedim B'chum. How could Rabbi Shimon say that you're able to have a non-Jewish court of law, do divorce and freedom? How could they do that? They're not B'nai Christos. They don't have Gittin. They themselves don't have the dinim of Gittin. So how could they create documents for Gittin? Shimon is really going according to the opinion of Rabbi Lazar. Lazar says it's the Eidim Mesira who caused the get. Because of a Nosan. The kosav is the ksivas a star, so the star has to be written. The get that's written by a Jew. The signatures could be non-Jews, as long as you have Eidim that he gave it over to her. That's fine. Eidim Mesira Karta. The Eidim that watch the Mesira, the giving over of the get, are the ones who cause the get to happen, the divorce to happen, to come into effect halachically. So the Gemara asks the question: how can you say that we're talking about according to the Shita of Rabbi Elazar? Didn't Rabbi Abba say but Rabbi Elazar admits that if it's mezuyah mitoicha, it's possible. That if the document is forged from inside of it, that it's possible. So the Gemara answers: if it's clearly a non-Jewish name, it's not going to look like it's forged. You know it's a non-Jew. You're not going to make a mistake. You might think that you could start using a get with a non-Jewish name. Interesting.
What do they mean, Shemus Mufhakim? What are the names? The names of the person who's getting the get, or the name of the witnesses?
The witnesses are clearly not Jewish. You're not going to make a mistake. You're not going to rely on them. You're not going to think they're Jewish. Doesn't look like it's mezuyah mitoicha. This Rabbi Elazar said that if the witnesses are kroivim, for example, then people might rely on them. If the witnesses are kroivim, they're for puzzle, for example, because of relatives. If they're Jewish names, people might mistakenly rely on it. Without the Eidim Mesira, or even using them as Eidim Mesira, that's only if they're Jewish names that are puzzle. But if it's not Jewish names that are Shemus Mufhakim, clearly not Jewish names, then he's might. It's not mezuyah mitoicha because people know that they're not Jewish. People aren't going to make a mistake. That's the way he explains it. We also had this before. So the Gemara asks a question on Daf Yud Aleph: what are we talking about? What are clearly non-Jewish names? So we give a few examples. Papa Kagain Hurmiz. V'avudino, v'arshivtoy, v'arkidrei, v'vati, v'nokum. Gives give a bunch of names of. Rashi says these are names of the dayone of the kechavim, the dayone, the ones who are signing the document, the judges. But if it's not clearly a non-Jewish name, so then it doesn't work. According to the Shimon. If so, instead of saying in the end of the Mishnah, it's only a problem if it was done behedyet, that it wasn't done professionally. Instead, we should differentiate even in a professional court of law and say like this: when this is applied b'shemus mufhakim, if it's for clearly non-Jewish names, but if it's not clearly not Jewish, then it won't work. Why didn't we mention that? Says the Gemara, this is what the Mishnah is saying. This when does apply if it's clearly not Jewish? But if it's not clearly not Jewish, it might be Jewish, get mixed up. Turns into the same din, not for the same reason, but the same din as if it was done in an unprofessional court of law. Upsulin is going to be possible. Anyway, same, but the other answer is Seifa suddenly Gittin mom. Seifa is not Reb Shimon talking. Shimon said his bit. He said that if it's that even it's kosher for Gittin Nashim Shechari Avadim because it was like a Elazar, and we're talking about Shemus Mufhakim. And the end of the Mishnah when it says Lehuskudol was mentioned also beheaded, we're only talking about it's only possible when it's done beheaded. That's talking about the shita of the Chachamim. This that we say Gittin Moment is possible. This that we say that a document of sale is possible is only if it's done beheaded. It's not Reb Shimon, it's a Chacham. Okay, we have some more information. Tanya was said in the Brisa. We're halfway through the page in Daf Yud Aleph Omer Aleph. Omer Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosi said, it's in the Tosefta. Kacham Reb Shimon the Chacham b'Tzeidon. They were sitting in Tzeidon, and Reb Shimon told the Chacham over there. Rabbi Kiva the Chachamim was a generation before him. Said the machlokes of Rabbi Kiva the Chacham was not about documents which are in a professional court of non-Jewish law, a professional court that's non-Jewish. Everybody would agree that in such a case, even if the signatures are not Jewish, it's kosher. Even for Nashim and Shekuri Avodim, well, we'll have to explain that Rabbi Kiva and the Chum will hold like Rabbi Elazar. Machlokes is if it was done behedyet. was done in front of an unprofessional court of Jewish law. Rabbi Kiva says it's kosher. Chum say it's possible except for Gittin Nashim Shekariban. So what does this mean? According to Rabbi Akiva, so there's a big Tosfos. I think we might have to read it.
Does he have cock?
Okay.
Mommy's sleeping.
Middle of the sheet.
Mommy's sleeping. He's gonna have a cock sprout.
We're gonna have to do the Tosfos to understand this. It's a bit long, but first let's finish till the dot. Shimon Gamliel says, even these are kosher if Yidden hadn't signed. If they don't let Jews sign, but in a place where Jews are allowed to sign, it's not okay. So the Gemara asks, also a place where Jews are not allowed to sign, which should make a gzeiro that you shouldn't be allowed to use these documents because there's places where Yidden are allowed to sign. A name with other names, you can switch it up. But one place with another place, you're not going to switch.
Are you saying the government doesn't allow them to sign, or?
Yeah, there are certain places where the government didn't allow Jews to sign. Obviously, the Jews were persecuted. So let's try to understand this Gemara. Let's see in the Tosfos. It's a big Tosfos.
Okay, give me a second to find it. I have to go to the back of the book because this is Steinsaltz.
Okay, the fourth to the last Tosfos on Daf Yud Aleph.
The fourth to the last. 1, 2, 3. How does it start?
Lo nechlaku.
Lo nechlaku.
It's a big Tosfos.
Doesn't look that-
Peter to explain. All the documents that are dealt with in the non-Jewish court, even though the signatures are not Jewish, it's kosher. Each one according to its din. Any other document, like for example, document of sale, in any case, it's kosher because we trust the non-Jewish courts. If we're talking about a get or shtar shikhr, a document of freedom, beidim mesira. We're talking about beidim mesira. You have witnesses that saw the shliach give over the get. B'shemus mavakin is clearly not Jewish name, so you're not going to get mixed up. It's not considered mezuyif mitoich. Where's the machlekes that it was done behedyet? What does that mean? It was done behedyet. Tosfos explains it was not done in a professional court, but still you have Pirush b'shemus mavakim. You have clearly non-Jewish names, and you also have witnesses that saw the document being delivered. But Rabbi Kiva machshir. Rabbi Kiva says it's fine. You have Edom Assyria. You're not even trusting them. You're not relying on the document. He doesn't make a gzedo that you could possibly, you may say it's kosher even without Edom Assyria. Just like we see that our kois is kosher without Edom Assyria for other documents. He doesn't make that. He's not going. He said it's fine. If you have Edom Assyria, if you have Jewish witnesses and saw the document being delivered, you don't need the signatures. You don't need the non-Jewish court of law. So it's fine. When it comes to other documents, the Chum say it's possible. Because Rina, we have Exera, you might get mixed up. Because in a professional court that's not Jewish, you do rely on the non-Jewish judges. So therefore, even where you're not relying on them, because you have Edom Assyria, you have witnesses that saw the shtar being delivered, you cannot trust it because you might get mixed up. Chutzmi Gittin Noshim, except for Gittin Noshim. They're lenient by Gittin Noshim. See, this is the difference. They're lenient by Gittin Noshim. Why is that? When it comes to shtar shtaris that are kosher bar kosher v'leidem asiri, there's exeda because we rely on them without without the Eidei Mesira. So therefore, there's Xera, you might get mixed up. But when it comes to Gittin Oshim, Afilu Arkois, even when it comes to the Arkois, even when it comes to the non-Jewish professional courts, you need to have Eidei Mesira. Like in the Mixavita, there's nothing to be goes. What does Rav Shimon Gamliel hold? Shimon Gamliel said, Af Eluk Shedin, b'makom she'en yisol chaismin. Koloimer, meaning to say, Af Gittin Oshim means she'en b'makom she'en yisol chaismin. Gittin Oshim is only kosher if it's a place where Yidden are not allowed to sign. Peter she'en menichim yisol lachtein. They don't let Jews sign. The lo yavelitus leiber she'en yisrael. You're not going to mix up. You're not going to make a mistake to say that they're Jewish. In other words, the whole heter, according to Shimon Gamliel, of she'emus muhakim doesn't exist. It's only if they don't let Jews sign. Only then do we allow you to have non-Jews signed into the shtar. Otherwise, we're worried that you might get mixed up and think they're Jewish. Question is, even if they don't let Jews sign, which make Xera, because in a place where Jews are allowed to sign, you made the Xera, that even if it's clearly not Jewish names, you're still not allowed to rely on the shtar because you might get mixed up when it comes to names that are not clearly not Jewish. So even from one place to the other, we should make the Xera. Even though it's one Xera on another Xera, nevertheless, it made sense to the questioner, because you were so worried that even if it's clearly not Jewish name, you wanted to make a Xera if they let Jews sign. We should have been worried about this. Then we answered from one place to another, you're not going to make a mistake. That's the way the Re explains this Gemara. Very masterful Pedish. Brilliant explanation. I might have read it a little fast. So I'll call upon him according to this brisa, these three shittas, Shimon, the Chacham, the Rav Kiva, the Chacham, Shimon Gamliel, all of them really hold Eidei Mesira Karti. The only one who's really strict is Rav Shimon Gamliel. He doesn't rely on the leniency of Shemus Mavakim. He's the strictest. He only says it's okay if it's a place where Yidden are not signing. Gemara goes on, Ravina Sover Lach Shure B'Knufiyata Darmoy. Ravina thought that it would be kosher even any gathering of non-Jews. Rav from Arkois not. Rav from said it says in our Mishnah only if it's Arkois. Obviously, we don't hold like Rabbi Akiva. We don't hold like Shimon either. At least the Tanakama doesn't. Has to be Arkois. Has to be in a professional court of law. Omar Rava said, Halacha is like the Tanakama. You can only have a star mecher, bill of sale with not in a non-Jewish court. Rava says, if you have a star that's written in Parseh, Persian star that you gave it over in front of Jewish witnesses, you have Eidei Mesira. You're allowed to use this document to collect your debt from property that hasn't been sold yet. How could the Eidei Mesira be kosher? How could the witnesses who saw the star being given over be kosher if they don't know how to read the star? It's in Parsi. Says the Gemara b'diyadit. They do know how to read it. Well, you need a document that can't be forged. The writing can't be forged, can't be erased, and so on. With Dafitza, you treated it so that it can't be forged. In order for a star to be kosher, it has to review the topic of the star in the last line, the leiko. We're talking about that he did that. So I'm not sure how in a non-Jewish court of law how they do all that. So the Gemara asks, if so, even from property that he had sold, you should be allowed. We don't know. It doesn't. The average person doesn't know about the document, so the buyers didn't know to beware. So therefore, it doesn't. When it comes to mishubadim, you can't use the shtar to take from people that already bought it. But if it's property that has been sold, you're allowed to take it. Use it to take it. So we see the opinion, the Eidei Mesira card. You trust the Eidei Mesira. Maybe not. Maybe we're relying on the Eidei Mesira, even though it's not a Jewish document. I guess the witnesses are not Jewish. Nevertheless, the Eidim Asira who saw it make it a kosher. We're talking about a regular monetary problem. We're not talking about a get. Yeah, the chiddush is you can't be good from Mishubatim. I think so. From the last line in Daf Yud Aleph from Aleph. Bo minei Reish Lakish min Rav Yechanan, Reish Lakish asked Rav Yechanan. What if you have witnesses signed in a get that their names are similar to non-Jewish names? Talking about an Eretz Yisrael. We had a case of someone whose names were Lucas and Luz, and we said it was kosher. Only Lucas and Luz that we're talking about, that people are not going to make a mistake and think that you could. But Dafka Lucas Velus, that's clearly not Jewish names, and you're not going to rely on them. But if it's another name that Yidden are going to sign, that Yidden have such a name, no. In such a case, you can't rely on it.
So this is in an instance where we don't have Jewish courts, or we don't have a big Jewish population, because if you could find a Jewish court, you could research the person and see if the person's Jewish, right? No matter, regardless of their name, because there's lots of Jews that have names that don't sound Jewish at all. But Steinsaltz says, well, there's some names that a Jew will not take. They won't name their child Christopher, for example. But other names like Luke, I don't know, could be a Jew, right?
So the question, the way the Rashi explains the question is, they didn't know who the witnesses were, but they did have Eidim Asira. They didn't know if the witnesses were Jewish or not Jewish. He said, if it's Lucas and Luz, that they're clearly not Jewish names, that's a Greek
sounds
name.
A lot like a Christian.
And you could rely on Eidim Asira. But if they're not clearly not Jewish names, so then you get mixed up. And even if you have even if you have the Eidim Asira, you can't rely on it, because there's a Gzeira that you might think to rely only on the witnesses, even though we don't know who they are, because you might think they're Jewish.
You would think that a non-Jew would declare that he's non-Jew. Why would he want to hide it?
It's not clear Jewish from the document. It's not clear from the document.
Oh, the document.
So the Gemara asks, it says, Gittin if you have a get that comes from overseas, even though their names are like non-Jews, it's kosher, because the majority of Yidden in Chutzlaretz, their names are like non-Jewish. So the Gemara says, there it's a different reason. There, it's because the majority of people in Chutz La'aretz don't have Jewish names. So therefore, you're not going to. The fact is, the majority of witnesses there are not Jewish, have names that aren't Jewish. Maseches and Eretz Yisrael, where the majority are Jewish, if you have a name that's not clearly not Jewish, you might get mixed up. You might think you can rely on it, and then you get into a problem. Some people say, that he asked him, like the case of our Mishna, that it came from Chutz La'aretz and the name was not Jewish, and he answered him that it's kosher. You could assume that they're Jewish, because Roiv Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, their names are like non-Jewish names. So you could assume that it's not a Jewish get, it's a Jewish name. Shenkin in Eretz Yisrael, you can't assume. If it's clearly not Jewish, there's no problem. If it's possibly not Jewish, then you have a problem. Even if you have Eidim Asira, you can't trust the get, because it could be not Jewish, it could be Jewish. And we're worried that you might come to rely on the not-Jewish name, and then it's considered a shtar that's mezuyif mitoicha, that it's like forged from inside of it. So you can't trust such a get. All right, we're gonna go to the Yerushalmi now.
Okay. So is it Halacha Dalet?
Yeah. That's Halacha Dalet.
Are you on it, Baruch? Excuse me. So you have to go all the way down to Dalet. Maybe we can do it this way. Give me a second, David.
Yeah, I also.
So
Sorry.
it starts off with kol get, sheyesh alav.
I think he went to change the
David?
diaper. It does start with kol get shel shalav, eight kuti.
Yes, you got it, kol get she.
Okay, does everybody have it?
Yes.
The Mishnah
Yes.
says, "Kol get sheyesh alav eid kuti." Any get that has a kuti who signed onto it, also, it's disqualified. Chutz mi Gittin nashim shechur avadim. Except for when it comes to Gittin nashim shechur avadim, there we are lenient, because the Gemara will explain the idea of Gzeres Kuchem. But if they're both kutim, it's going to be possible. Says the Gemara, Maseches shevi l'fnei Rav Gamliel kvar osnai get isha vayu eidov eidei kutim ichshiroi. Rav Gamliel was machshir a get even with two eidei kutim. Kol hashtar is eilam arkoy shel goyim. Any star that's in a non-Jewish court of law, afal pi shechismein goyim ksherin, even if the signatures are non-Jewish, it's kosher. Chutz me Gittin nashim shechur avadim, except for not Gittin nashim shechur avadim. Shimon ever kuban ksherin. Shimon says even by Gittin nashim shechur avadim, it's kosher. It's only disqualified if it's done by a hedyot. But if it's done by professionals, even Gittin nashim shechur avadim is kosher. Allah is not like a Shimon. Says the Gemara, Kol get sheyesh alav eid kuti possible chulu. Says the Gemara, Ala momin nechshedu, Ala momin nifsu. We suspect kutim when it comes to monetary issues. We don't trust them. It's a different shot than the Bavli. The Bavli we explained because of kulchem. By a get, all the witnesses sign in front of each other. Here we're saying something else. We're saying that we suspect them. We don't trust them for monetary issues. Lo nechshedu ala arroyos. We don't suspect them for arroyos. So therefore, when it comes to Gittin Nashim, which is erva, question of relationships, we do trust the kuti. So what's the question you could ask?
What if the get has to do with money? There's money involved in a get.
Question could be why only one witness, not two? Why can't you have two?
But can you not ask also there's money involved in a get?
Oh, because of the ksuba.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's a good question. There wouldn't be belief for the ksuba. So the Gemara says, "Ve'edei nefashis ke'edei aroyos." Edei nefashis ke'edei aroyos. When it comes to edei nefashis, also we when it comes to we trust kutim. So first the Gemara the Kasha, v'yata afilu shneim kutim. Even if both of them are kutim, we should believe them when it comes to get because they're believed for aroyos.
Are they talking about kutim with the immoral relationships, or?
We trust them, yeah, for our rights, for more relation to sign off. We trust them; they're going to say the truth when it comes to relationships. The Gemara says if we trust them, so then why can't you have both witnesses be kutim? So the Gemara answers, "Shani, it's different. She'enim bekiin v'diktuke gittin. They're not baki. They're not professionals when it comes to the details of the get. So obviously, so me'ato afilu kuti achad yeh pasuk. So even one kuti should be pasuk. Rabovin tifta shechosim yisrael b'sayf. Talking about that the Yid signed afterwards. So it must be that he knows he's a chaver. So obviously, now why can't you trust a kuti in other cases of Gittin? Oh, so the Gemara says like this. Rabbi Yossi says, Asya commandom edim choismin zeh shalei keneged zeh. So machlokes. This that we say that this that we say that you're allowed to have one kuti who signed on to a get is according to the opinion that the edim don't sign in front of each other. So he's not chayshish. Probably. So in other words, we trust him because he's trustworthy by Gittin. He just doesn't know the details. Fact is, the Yid is signed at the end, and he knows that the kuti is the one who signed first. He knows he's a good. He obviously knows. He investigated. He made sure that he knows the dinim of Gittin. This kuti does know the dinim of Gittin. We can trust him. But according to the opinion that they have to sign in front of each other. Even if the kuti's at the end, it's kosher. Because they're doing it in front of each other. It's mamash not very, very different than the Bavli. And you also have a big question on the Yerushalmi. According to that even if the Edim are not signing in front of each other, so what makes a get better than other things? I guess the Yerushalmi answered, the Yerushalmi answered that we trust them when it comes to Gittin. They just don't know the details. It's not such a big deal. He just has to know that he knows the details, then he'll sign his name afterwards. And if it's Zebli Fnei Zeh, the kuti can be beside. But by other documents where we don't even trust them, he might be lying. So then there's no such thing. A Yid cannot help the kuti gain trust.
I guess they don't hold by the oral law, therefore
right.
They don't know.
Yeah. So the Gemara now goes on. New case, Shtar shechoismoi ba'arba edim, v'nimshu shnayim rishonu grib mebeis. Let's say you have 4 witnesses on a shtar, and the first 2 are the relatives or psulim. Kosher v'tiskayim edus v'shtar. The shtar is going to be kosher, and you can use the rest of the other 2 witnesses to be mekayim the edus. So we'll go according to the Korban Eidah. It's different girsot here. Our girsot is according to the girsot of the Korban Eidah goes according to our girsot. The Bnei Moshe changes it out of order. So Rav Ovin said,
Where are you? Which part? What's the? How does it start?
We just said
Korban.
So Rav Ovin said, we're talking about Shechosam Yisrael b'Seif. As long as Yisrael's b'Seif, it's fine. The Korban Eidah touches Seif. So we see clearly this is a raya. Even if there's 2 Eidim that are apostle that signed first, as long as the last 2 signatures are kosher Eidim, it's fine. So too when it comes to kuti, even if the kuti signed first, as long as the second guy is kosher, it's okay.
The logic is
says-
surprising. The logic is surprising because the last person who's signing, it's as if he's signing off on even the first two that ended up being possible.
So the carbonator says, we'll say that they wanted to be mechabed them or a certain condition, but not because they're kosher. Even though, yeah, it is surprising to allow a witness as possible anywhere near the document. You know, we could honor him in other ways. I do agree with you that it's surprising to say that it's kosher. The din, b'chlal, is, yeah. Rabbi Ela b'shem Rabbi Asa asa kiman d'omar ein eidim chayis me'elzeh b'fnei zeh. Rabbi Ela says in the name of Rabbi Asa, we're talking about that the witnesses have to sign in front of each other. So obviously they wouldn't have allowed them to sign if they wouldn't wanted to honor them or so on. L'chabed. However, according to the opinion that they don't have to sign in front of each other, no, you're not allowed. You cannot have such a thing. You can't, if it's you're not allowed. So he disagrees with Rab Ela b'shem Rav Yasa. Obviously, he's arguing on Rab Yossi. It's machlokes. Rav Yossi said even Adra. He said fakert. He said if it's zev shalei, if they're signing in front of each other, the kutta could be v'soif in the end. But Yasa keherche gedes vehi pasuk. So the Gemara asks, the star. If you have edim that are moruchak, it's possible. The puzzle edus, it's like an empty space. You can't have an empty space in a star because you could be mezayif. You could add extra details. The Gemara answers less yoch. The Gemara of Yasser edim sulam in asin kerke geder shalei boilach sheda should get edim sulam are not considered like a blank space. That's not a good enough reason to be placed. They wanted You're allowed to do that. Adrabah, you're filling in the space with the edim sulam. It's not like an empty space where you could just be mezayif extra details. You can't compare the two cases. Kutim mishumayim sulam. So now the Gemara asks the question: why are we plaisel kutim? We're talking about the psul of kutim now. Even though the Yerushalmi said that you can use them in the get, there's a psul, and the carbonator says that they are not allowed to marry Gittin. Why not?
Not allowed to marry Yehudim?
Yeah, they're not allowed to marry.
Oh,
Yeah,
one that's the halacha.
What?
I guess today's the same thing. We can't marry them. Not allowed.
If you could find them.
Do they
Yes, if you can
exist?
find them, exactly.
I don't know. I doubt it. There's definitely Karayim. I don't think we have Kutim. I'm not sure.
Well, there's a few.
Maybe there are some. I have to check. Reason is because they did not convert properly. They converted because of fear. So they're gatus. They're considered like goyim. According to this, obviously, how could they be kosher to sign on anything? The fact is, even if the beginning of their gatus wasn't good, they stayed Jewish. So why can't you? Why is it not good now? There's no second chances. That's what the Gemara is asking. You're not going to be mekabelim if he nevertheless wants to be a yid. The problem is that because in the beginning they were goyim in the first generation, a goy's child, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is a mamzer. So the problem is mamzeris. You don't want to get involved with them because their kids are mamzer. That's according to that opinion. According to that opinion, we don't hold
Why
like
would
that.
it be
Judge,
mamzer?
is a blood really a mamzer?
Not according to us. According to us, it's pogum for. I think maybe kahuna, but not mamzer, not mamzeris. The Gemara asks, "What Rabbi Akiva gated tzaddikim? Didn't Rabbi Akiva say that they're propagated? So what's the problem? They're propagated in the beginning, according to Rabbi Akiva, and they married and they married, what's it called? And they, even when they married the Yidden, it's fine. So the kids are not mamzerim. Says the Gemara, because they don't believe in the drushes of Chazal. Al Shem Shein Miyabnitz Arusis and Matzina Sanisus. They would only do Yibum for Arusis. If you had Yibum, right, a case where you're married to someone without children, you only if you were a fiance. The way they explained it is Hachutza Lish Zor. Only a woman who's Hachutza, who's an Arusa Loisia Lish Zor. Loisia Chutza Lish Zor. Only a woman who's a chutza, but Nesua, she could be with an Ishzar. That's not the way we explain the Pasuk Parkera. That if she's married, she can't go outside to Ishzar. Not that a woman who's outside. They made up their own drash. So because they made up their own drash, Rabbi Akiva will hold their children are a mamzer. Rabbi Akiva holds you have a mamzer v'chayav and lav. You're even allowed your child is a mamzer. So now the Gemara asks the obvious question. The Chum say there's no such thing as a mamzer b'yavama. Says the Gemara, the reason is because they're not careful with the details of get, so their children could be a mamzer because of that. What about according to Rabbi Gamliel? He says you could have two witnesses who are kutim. So what's the reason why to make them also bakal? According to Rabbi Akiva, according to Rabbi Gamliel, you can have two witnesses. There's no reason why they can't marry Klal Yisrael. According to the opinion of Geda Aroy, is how could they b'chlal sign on our documents? So the answer is obviously that the Gemara obviously holds that eventually they're in the sky of the change mind. That's why the Gemara asks, well, why can't the second generation be good? Because by then all the children are mamzer. That's the problem. By the way, that would be the problem with Ethiopians as well. If you say that they were Jewish the whole time, it's worse for them because then all the children are mamzer. It's better to say that they should undergo conversion, doing them a favor, because they didn't do proper gittin and so on. So going back to this question, Rabbi Gamliel says they did have good gittin. They got mixed up with the Kahane Abamas, the priests of the Bamas. So we got mixed up with the wrong people. We're talking with the Kahanim, we're from the worst of the worst. They weren't from the Bnei Levi. They were talking about the worst of people. There was a psul, there was problems. They got mixed in with people who are problems, therefore they can't marry us. Even according to Gamliel, who says that they are careful Jews and so on and so forth, there's a problem in their yichus, there's a problem in their lineage. Ultimately, the fact is, it's interesting that neither the Bavli nor the Yerushalmi mentioned it, but the Poskim say we don't trust Kutim anymore. There's a different Gemara where they were Megala, they revealed the Rosh brings, this Gemara Maseches Chulin, I think, where we learned that they were not Jewish. But it's very interesting that neither the Bavli nor the Yerushalmi mentioned it. I guess I'll read the Rosh once we're already talking about it. So, and the Rif, the Rosh and the Rif. The Rosh.
Where is that? The Rosh.
It's in the back of the Gemara, the Rosh. Rabbeinu Asher, he says like this. He says like this, Va'idna nowadays, kol eid kuti puzzle. Any aid is possible. Anything. Obviously, we're not talking about our courts, because if it's a professional court, that's something else. Because we have another Gemara in Maseches Chulin that says, they made them goyim mamash, because they found out that they worshiped idols. Even when it comes to dinim of Eruvin, I think they cannot give you reshus if you want to make a ruva chatzeros. You can't be a non-Jew. He can't just give you permission to use. You have to mamash be soicher. You have to rent it from him. He's mamash like a guy. Very, very interesting. And he says that Eidim have to be chaysman zevif. They have to sign in front of each other. But it's interesting that we have a Yerushalmi, we have a Bavli. Nothing is mentioned here in Maseches Gittin. I need the Rosh to tell us that there's a Gemara Maseches Chulin that says that they're going mamash. Okay. We're on the bottom of Daf Hey Amud Beis. Amar Rav Acho, Kil Yotzei Barakayim. Rav Achos. Ravacha said, in the Mishnah, we said that if you have a star that's oilam barkois, that's in the non-Jewish professional court, there's a curl. They have a reputation. Therefore, it's kosher stars. So the Gemara says, "Me'ata filish name kutu." According to Reb Shimon, that he allows you to use even for Gittin Noshim. So why doesn't he? Why shouldn't you allow? Why shouldn't he allow Mishneim Kutim? In other words, according to him, that you're relying on Eidim Masiro. According to him, you're relying on Eidim Masiro. Why can't you allow Eidim that are Kutim? What's the difference? As long as they have Eidim Masiro. When it comes to Gittin Noshim, that's the question. That's the way the Pnei Moshe explains it. The Gemara answers Randav Vav now. He said they weren't professionals. You can't rely on them for the get. Reb Shimon is machshir with their gittin. So how does that make sense? Of a goy. So what's the difference in a kuti and a goy? That's the question. By professional non-Jewish court of law, he's machshir. So why by kuti is he not? But by B'Shem Zeira, asked the B'Shem Kabbalazar, he holds like Kabbalazar that you have Eidim Asidik. Mother Lazar Amraf B'Shem Alav Eidim Kosher, Kin B'Shem Neimer Af B'Shem Alav Eidim Kosher. Shimon says, so you don't have to have Eidim. You don't even have to have Eidim. You have Eidim Asira. So in a Chanabi, he would be moided that if the Kutim, if he had Eidim Asira, then it would be okay with Kutim, with two witnesses that are Kutim. So now the Gemara asks.
Sorry, you asked a question. You asked a question. What's the difference between the goyim and the Eidim Kutim? Can't you say the Eidim goyim, they're a goy, they don't pretend anything. They're a goy, they're a goy. The Kutim, they're living the lie.
So it's easier to get mixed up. You're saying to rely on them without the Eidim Asira. Could be. I was thinking that even though the Pnei Moshe doesn't say that, I think maybe that's a very legitimate way to explain that. Even if you have Eidim Asira. If there's Eidei Kutim on, it would be even worse. You can't rely on them whatsoever. Might be right. So the Gemara asks, Miyata filanasa behedyet. According to the Shimon, that he relies on Eidim Asira, why does it have to be a professional court? Why can't it be a regular bunch of non-Jews who get together? You're not relying on them, you're relying on Eidim Asira. The Jew wrote the star. Who cares if the non-Jews others have signed and they're not Dayanim, professional judges? The Gemara answers, have it Tzurcha lahu demar. Rabbi Yaakov Baracho, there was such a question. No, we need the reason. The thing that the Rabbi Yaakov Baracho said, the Kil Yetze Bar Kois. Kil Yetze Bar Kois. So we need both. There's two parts to it. Only by our Kois. Now, by a get, we can't rely on the goyim whatsoever because they're lav and krisus. The main reason was because of Eidim Asira. So what's the difference in a hedyot and narcois? Is the Pnei Moshe explaining? You could say that by Gittin Momin, it's possible behedyot if it's not professional because you can make a gzeira, you can make a mistake. So too by Gittin Noshim. It's interesting. We did learn. You remember in the Tosfos, according to the Chachamim, that they do trust regular goyim for what's called for Gittin Noshim because we're only relying on the Masira, not on the Koil. So this is not like that. This opinion is not like that. This opinion is that yes, we make a Gzeiro and it has to be a professional court because by a regular star it has to be in a professional court according to the Chum. So too by Gittin Noshim. Ultimately, we don't even hold you could have Gittin Noshim in a professional court. We don't hold like that. We hold like Tanakama that you can't have Gittin Noshim in a professional court, coming out of a professional court. Because it is considered Mezuyif Metochitz. It is considered like a forgery, even if you say Eidim Masira Karta. Gemara goes on, Shtar Yotze B'Beis Shan, there was a star in Beis Shan, and the non-Jews were going. The non-Jews were going, so what do? And we're talking about it with the star moment. There was a machlekes. Rav Yossi said, "He's spalgun Rav Yechon Rish Lakish Chadam Raposel Chadam Rakash." There's machlekes in Rav Yechon Rish Lakish. One opinion is that it was okay, that it was not okay. One opinion is that it is. But both Rav Yechon Raposel Rish Lakish Rakash. Yechon said it's possible. Rish Lakish says it's kosher. In my time, the Rish Lakish absolutely so moment. The reason of Rish Lakish is he didn't want to make the loss to the malva, to the lender. But feel the lace mafsid l'dain mafsid l'dain. The shaila is, the fact is, the loiv is losing out. So what do you mean you don't want to make the malva lose money? We don't want to lock it up from people not to be able to borrow money, because he's going to try to borrow money and he's not going to be able to find them. He's going to only have non-Jewish witnesses, and you can't trust them. Therefore, he wanted to say you could trust the non-Jewish witnesses. How could you trust the non-Jewish witnesses if it's not our kois, if it's not bar koin? Obviously, we have Edom Asiro. As long as you have Edom Asiri, he didn't make any gzera, any decree that you might rely on, even though it was not our place. Because Rish Lakish wanted to help the loiva. But Halacha is not like it. The Halacha is like Rabbi Yechon, you can't rely on our kois, even by monetary issues. We're up to Halacha Hey on Daf Vav Amud Aleph, and we're going to continue tomorrow with the Bavli and the Yerushalmi.
Okay, are we going to start?